everyone, to Christiana's Psychic Cafe. I'm so glad you're here. We have a really special show for you tonight. Of course, today is Father's Day, so we want to wish Happy Father's Day to everyone who is a father or is an important man in someone's life. I also want to shout out Dax Carlisle, founder and president of the Tarot Guild. Today is his birthday. And today is also the birthday of my late mother, my mom in spirit. So we send her a spiritual high five in heaven. Okay, so today my guest is Barbara Graver. You may know her as the editor of the New Age Review. You may have heard her on internet radio. She's got a lot of stuff going on, and I'm so happy to have her with us. So let's bring her on right now. Hi, Barbara. How are you?
Hi, Christiana. I'm great. How are you?
I am terrific. It's so nice to see you.
It's nice to see you as well. It's been a long time.
It has. So you and I mean, I think by now we probably would have met online if we hadn't met.
Probably.
But you and I actually met in person when I lived in the Poconos. You're a Pennsylvania girl.
We did. We did. I attended your tarot workshops, and I was a client. I got some great readings. And funny thing, I found when we moved recently, I was cleaning out the closet at the old house, and I found I have a couple CDs of readings from you, but I actually found a tape from back when you used to tape the readings. And it was and I couldn't listen to it though because I don't have a tape player anymore, so I was kind of disappointed. I was curious what you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now we do CDs and MP3s.
Oh, right.
Yeah, absolutely. So Barbara, while you did study tarot with me, you are also an angel card reader. What deck do you work with?
I work with a bunch of different decks. I have a bunch of Doreen Virtue decks. I probably have 25 tarot decks and 10 angel decks. And so I switch around. The nice thing about the angel cards is there are decks, that are for specific things. There's a relationship deck. There's a life purpose deck. So I swap around. But I have a couple favorites. I like the Angel Therapy deck a lot, and I also like the Archangel deck and the Goddess deck. She has a real nice Goddess deck.
Yes. Yes. Now, have you seen the Virtue Angel Tarot deck?
I have. I got the tarot deck because I was taking a workshop, an angel card reading workshop, and they also wanted us to get the deck. And I've since passed the deck along to someone else who I thought it might work for them a little better. It's a nice deck. It's a very nice deck. It's a very pretty deck. And I like the way she uses the elements in the deck, and I think you said this too on your review, and I thought the same thing. I like a little more symbolism, in my decks, to work off of. So, and in that deck there's symbolism in terms of the elemental symbolism and color, but it's not quite as detailed as some of the other decks.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. So I've started this new thing where I start the show with a card of the week. So I thought it would be fun if I could do a tarot card of the week, and then we'll have you do an angel card of the week.
Sure, I love that.
Okay, so let me start. And I'm shuffling. I'm working with my regular old Weight Rider Smith. And let's see what we got here. Nice. Okay. And this is so cool because it's Father's Day. We have the Six of Cups. And of course, right? Isn't that great?
Yeah.
One of the interpretations of the Six of Cups is memories from childhood. So for those of us who are lucky enough to have happy memories of our fathers in childhood, even for those of us whose fathers are not here with us now, this is a card that really celebrates that and connects us to that. So that's a lovely thing. Another way to look at this card is about honoring our history. You know, one thing that's tough about Mother's Day and Father's Day is not everyone is lucky enough to have great parents.
Sure.
And if you're a person who maybe didn't have a great experience with your father, this is a card about honoring that and healing from that and finding a way to let that go. So with the Six of Cups, we have an opportunity to look to the past, to celebrate our happy memories, to honor our less than happy memories, and to find healing. Okay, you're on, Barbara. Let's do an angel card.
Absolutely. And I actually pulled this card while you were talking, and it's kind of funny because I pulled it when you were talking about people having less than a positive, and let me put it real close so you can see it, relationships with their families. And this is like Archangel Michael, you know, is one of my favorites, and it's cancel, clear, delete. And you know, with the angel therapy, there's a lot of a lot of work with Archangel Michael working with clearing, you know. And so this could be for the people who have, you know, a little bit of a conflicted relationship maybe with their dads. And it's saying, you know, to use positive words and thoughts and to ask the angels to cancel past effects of negativity. So I think that's saying, you know, anybody who does have any, you know, any kind of negative relationships possibly with their family of origin, that this is a good opportunity to release that and let it go and move on in a more positive vein.
Beautiful. I love that. Now, the name of that card again, cancel, clear, delete.
Clear, delete.
So apparently angels use computers.
And evidently they do.
But you know, I love that. I love how our language always changes according to what's going on in our culture. And right now our culture is very electronic.
Absolutely.
And I love that she can bring that angel energy in, but then use those words that are so graphic and so vivid and make so much sense for us in modern times. I love that.
Yeah, it's a nice juxtaposition, and you know, it's a very contemporary deck, you know, even though she has some more traditional decks, you know, with more traditional artwork, but this is a very contemporary deck, definitely.
I love it. And you have just told me that you are willing to do readings today during our time together.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Sure. So if anyone wants to call in, and of course, I don't have the phone number in front of me. Eric, what's the phone number?
Oh, the phone number is 615-692-1262.
Perfect. Please feel free at any time during our conversation, if you would like to call in and have an angel therapy reading with Barbara. We'll even tag team you. I'll do a tarot reading. Barbara will do an angel therapy reading. If you'd like to do that, again, the number is 615-692-1262, and you are welcome to do that. So, Barbara, you do so much. I wasn't even sure. I always think of you in conjunction with the New Age Review, but you've got so much going on, and I really want to talk about everything you've got. I want to get your websites out there. But before we do that, I'd really like to get some history. You have, for as long as I've known you, and I'm sure many years before that, you've really been dedicated to a spiritual path, a metaphysical path. You're certainly a psychic on many levels. You also do a whole lot for the community. Tell us how that all started.
Well, you know, it's hard to go back to, you know, an actual date of when it started. I mean, I could pick a couple maybe dates that were significant. I think probably the most recent, you know, significant date was going back probably a couple years to when I started the blog. Because I was always on a spiritual path and searching. I read tarot since I was 13, and I kind of cycled through different religious traditions and spiritual traditions and, you know, searching. But about, you know, over 2 years ago now when I started the blog, it was my 53rd birthday, and I couldn't sleep, and I was up, and you know, just kind of, you know, thinking about getting older and, you know, feeling that. And I was up, it was about 3 in the morning, and Eckhart Tolle came on, WVIA. And so it's 3 in the morning. I'm like watching Eckhart Tolle, and I'm thinking, this is such a, a strange little elfin guy with such an interesting message, and I kind of went with that. I started reading New Age stuff, and I really didn't have any kind of a context for New Age. I always thought New Age was a little kind of on the flaky side. I didn't think it had a whole lot to offer. And as I explored it, I found it really fascinating. And I started the blog, the New Age Review, and kind of because I didn't really have anyone to talk to about the things I was reading. And that, I wanted to just share things that I thought were good resources with people, hoping that people had an interest. And people, it was great because people did. And, the radio show was sort of an offshoot of that. And an interesting thing about the blog, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but you were the first person who gave me positive feedback on my blog way back when I started it. I don't think I was even using I was using like a pen name then. I wasn't even really using my real name because I think at that point I thought, I'm not sure I want people I know to read these posts, I'm not sure why I felt that way. But I did, and you messaged me on Facebook and said, "Oh, I love your blog and your articles," and it was really kind of what I needed to hear at that time, and so I never thanked you for that. So thank you.
Well, awesome, and I so appreciate, as I said, everything that you're doing for the community, getting all this out here. Now, your blog is thenewagereview.com. Is that right?
That's right.
And give us an example of some of the things that you write about.
I write about, I do reviews, obviously, of media, of New Age media. And, I do book reviews. I do occasionally movie reviews. My idea with the blog is to, I feel, there's such a wealth of information out there. And not all of it is created equal, obviously. And I just think it's nice and not saying that it's my place to define what is or isn't a valuable resource. It's my opinion. But when I find something that I think will be a benefit to people, I like to get it out there. And so that's the main purpose of the blog. I do personal posts as well. It's not strictly a review blog. But I do like to share resources with people, that I think will be of benefit.
And can you give us something that's come out recently that you really liked? What's something that you really liked?
Well, I've been exploring spiritualism recently and mediumship. So I think the last post I did actually was on veganism, but the one before that, I believe, was on a book by Linda Williamson. And or that may have been on the radio show. But I've been reading, she's written several books, and her books were published in the 90s. And she's an English medium, and she's written several books on mediumship. And what I like about her books, I've read quite a few of them at this point, is she's coming from the perspective of someone who was not born extremely gifted medium. I mean, she wasn't talking to spirits when she was 4 years old. She had some ability, and then she set about developing it. So to me, that's very resonant to me personally, because I can identify more clearly with that than someone who is, a prodigy. So that was probably the last thing I reviewed.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you have been developing your own skills as a medium, is that correct?
I have. I don't know. I don't know that I am a medium at this point. I mean, this is kind of like an exploration for me. And how it started was I was doing a show I have a co-host, Shirley Chase, and we decided we'd do a show on psychic development. And Shirley has been to many, many different, psychic courses and mediumship courses, and I really hadn't. So I thought, well, I better do some research. And I stumbled upon a psychic test. And the interesting thing about this test to me was I had always been taught to kind of assess psychic ability in terms of your four clairs, like either you're clairvoyant, you're clairaudient, you're clairsentient, you're claircognizant. And it was a little difficult for me because I'd had experiences in all of those, with each of those senses, and very sporadic, but very intense. And when I took this test, it was structured differently. It didn't say, oh, you're clairvoyant, you're clairaudient. What it said was, do you have, it either said you had mediumistic ability, that you were telepathic, that you were precognitive, or that I think you were telekinetic was the fourth one, which I definitely was not. But, and that got me thinking that all the experiences I had, whether they were, visions or voices or dreams, all had the element of being a connection with the other side. And that made me think that maybe there's something to this that I should develop. So I took a mediumship, a one-day workshop at a spiritualist church, and I told myself upon going that this would be the test, that if I didn't do well, that I expected to have some indication whether this was something I should pursue or not. And it turned out I felt that I did, so now I'm looking into it and finding it really fascinating.
What, when you say that, you went through this workshop and, and I have to say, when people ask me, where can I learn to be a medium, or where can I learn to communicate with the other side, I always refer them to the spiritualist church.
Right.
I feel like you get your best bang for your buck there.
Absolutely.
And a lot of it is that the spiritualists, this is a religion for them. They're not out to make $1 million off of your grief. This is religion. And I really respect that. And I really respect the work they do. And I respect the fact that that's where you went. And you're smart. That makes sense. But I'm curious, when you said that after this workshop you felt that you did, can you share more specifically what caused you to feel that?
Oh, sure. Well, in the workshop, it was given by Joseph Scheel, who is a medium, and he's a really interesting guy. This is at Journey Within Spiritualist Church in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, and they do have a website. It's journeywithin.org. And Joe Scheel, he's an interesting guy. He studied actually for the priesthood, and then he was a deacon in the Catholic Church, and he kind of went in a completely unexpected direction with his life. But in his class, he went through a lot of great content and lecture, and he gave us 3 exercises. And the first exercise was a guided meditation, where he described us, walking through the city, and he described the sights and the sounds. And afterwards, he's like, "Okay, who got something out of this? Who?" And people are like, "I saw the train, and I heard," and I'm like, "I got nothing out of it, And then we paired off to do an exercise where we would each have a card, and our partner would a picture card, and we were to describe the card without seeing it. And my partner, the card I had for her was 7 beach balls, all different colors. And she said to me, "I see 7 different colored circles." And, I'm like, "This is amazing." And I got nothing on my card. I think it was a hat. And I said, "I think it's something cylindrical," So it was horrible. And I thought, this is, and the whole time I'm thinking, this is just what I expected to happen, that I would be horrible at this. But then we got to the mediumship part, and we sat in groups of 4, and he told us we have to get 8 pieces of information from Spirit. And I thought, okay, I'm not even going to get 1 piece of information for Spirit. So, we were to shut our eyes and drift, and I shut my eyes and I drifted, and I saw a woman with light skin and dark hair, and I saw a swing, and I saw the color, like a rose pink color, and I heard the age 38. And so I opened my eyes and I started describing this to my fellow workshop attendees, and everyone's shaking their head. And then Joe had come up while I was saying this, and I'm like, does this make sense to anyone? And he said, yes, it makes sense to me. It all makes sense to me. And he said his mom died when she was 38. She was light complected. She had dark hair. They had a rope swing. I described this old-fashioned rope swing. They had one, the tall grass that, everything kind of fit, And he said she was known to grow the best roses in town, So I thought, well, this was pretty remarkable for me. And I considered it, I'm a person who's always looking for signs. And I considered this a sign that, and my intent was not, is this something I should do for a living? My intent was, is this something I should pursue? And so to me, that was my answer, that I should pursue it. I'm more interested in pursuing it to write about it, honestly, than to do it, to do it for people, because I think that the experience I had there, part of it had to do with the energy of being there. And the atmosphere, and I'm still going to a development circle every week, and I'm still pursuing it, and I'm going to take more workshops, but it's not that I necessarily expect to do that every time, but to me it was the idea that I should continue to explore it, so I am. So.
Nice. Now, you had mentioned that you'd been reading tarot cards since you were 13. How does a 13-year-old in Pennsylvania get into tarot?
Well, when I was 13, I actually lived in Michigan. I think we had just moved to Indiana. And I got them, my mother bought them for me. We went to this little, I guess it was like a metaphysical shop, and I'm not sure whose idea it was to go there in downtown Indianapolis, and she bought me tarot cards, and so I was the only person in rural Indiana in 1973 who had a deck of tarot cards, let alone read with them. And so I read cards for my friends, and I read quite a bit, and then I got kind of a little bit of a scare with the cards, that I felt. I did a couple readings for people, and, saw things that were not particularly positive, and those things kind of came to pass. And at that point in my life, I found that a little bit troubling. So I set them aside for a while, but I would always go back to them, and I still have that same deck, that same Rider-Waite. And I would always go back to them, and I read with them pretty consistently. Probably for the last, I would say, 10 years, I've been pretty consistent with them. So
now, do you think, because obviously you have a bit of a penchant for, as you say, the angel cards, and I would argue that a lot of the virtue cards are, I hate to divide it into positive and negative, but let us say that the virtue cards, some people would call them fluffy, some people would call them hairy-fairy. I would say they tend to always look on the bright side. Do you think that because you had those experiences with tarot when you were young, that you're more comfortable with those cards that handle everything from that spiritual perspective?
I'm not sure if it has to do with experiences when I was young. I do think, the angel cards are positive. That is true. They're a different kind of a tool, I think. I think there's more of an emphasis on, spiritual healing probably than there is, specific. One thing I like about tarot is from tarot you could get, very specific advice. You could get advice on finances. You could get advice on relationships. You could ask about business and get very specific advice. With the angel cards, I would say it's more... it's more about like healing and soul growth. It's kind of a different sort of a reading, and yeah, it is mostly positive, you know. But having said that, people still don't always get the card they would like to get. You know? So.
And life is like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, did you go to college?
I did. I went to college for nursing. I worked as a registered nurse for quite some time. I kind of semi-retired in 2007, and well, I did retire really from nursing. I mean, I do other things now, but.
So you have always been a healer. I mean, that's where I go with that. You know, that even in your straight career, if you will, you were a healer. And now when we look at what you do in the metaphysical world, it really is all about healing, isn't it?
You know, it may be. You know, nursing is not as much about healing, unfortunately, as it should be. You know, it's a lot about paperwork, and it's a lot about, you know, other things. And I have some serious issues with modern medicine and the practice of modern medicine.
And we will get to that. I think we have a caller. Is that true?
Yes, we do.
Hi, how are you?
Are you speaking with me?
I am speaking with you. How are you doing?
I am just fine. This is Anita.
Hey, Anita. It's so great to talk with you. I saw that 207 coming in. I thought it might be you. So, do you have a question for Barbara? Can we both do a reading for you? What can we do for you today?
Well, surprise me. Split it up however you like. My question is, I experience a lot of resistance in whatever direction I choose to go. From other people, from the environment, from whatever and wherever. It seems that if there is anyone at all involved in the equation, there will be very active resistance. And I want to know, is this something that I just have to put up with? Is there something I can do about it? What is your take on the situation?
Barbara, you go first.
Okay. Okay, Anita, I'm just shuffling here. I'm going to pull 3 cards for you on this and see if we could give a little insight on. Okay. All right. Now, the 3 cards I got, I'm going to show them to you one by one. The first one I got is the release card. And that's falling in the position of past, but I always say when I do these 3-card readings that it's not really past in terms of this is something that's happened and is gone. It's more of a foundation card. So this is something, that I think that you may not have completed. You may possibly be in the process of doing, but, I think it's a need for releasing. Not necessarily experiences or memories, but patterns, and just letting go of old patterns. And I think you've already begun your work on this. And then the second card I got was Archangel Raphael, which is a card of healing. He's known as the Angel of Healing. And this is a card that's falling in the position of presence. So I think if you're asking, what it is you can do to facilitate, these blockages, internal healing. And what I'm just kind of getting, separate from the cards is often, when we're experiencing blockages in life, I think it's because we're not manifesting things, sometimes because we're sending out mixed signals. And, with healing, it could be you want something, but on the other hand, you're afraid of it. These are the kind of blockages you could work on in terms of healing and chakra work and, possibly, chakra meditation. You might consider getting a book on that, just to see what kind of blockage is in you. Because, it's like everybody always says, you can only change yourself. The other people who are being problematic, may or may not, be completely under your control to change. So changing yourself, leading by example, working on your own blockages is good. And then the last card I got was the throat chakra card. So this is a card of communication, and this is falling in the future position. So I would take this also as an advice card. And, I think it's just saying keep the channels of communication open with the people you feel who may be thwarting you. You may want to, really open communication with them and try to, kind of get to the bottom of things and why things aren't going in the direction you want. So that's what I have from the angel cards.
Anita, any comments on that?
Looks like we lost her.
How? Oh my goodness gracious! Wow. Well, and I will share because I believe she's probably still listening. Hopefully, as you were talking, I was kind of looking through the tarot cards and really getting a lot of cards about blockage. The Ten of Swords, the Eight of Wands reversed. Anita is here. Her phone cut off, so I can see her in the chat room. So that's great. Anita, chat in and just tell us what you thought about Barbara's reading, and I'm going to chat a little bit too. So I really do see those blockages. And when we look at the source, I agree so much with Barbara that there is a need for chakra work. And, I know Anita. She's a friend of mine. She's actually a host here on Penn. And I'm sure that Anita's well-versed in chakras. But you know what? The cobbler's kids never have shoes. And root chakra stuff, heart chakra stuff, I really believe there's some old stuff. Maybe it's childhood stuff. Maybe it's past life stuff. But some really old stuff. And it may not be about the individual people that you have to deal with. It may be exactly as Barbara said about stuff that's in you. So I think that you really can in this lifetime let that go. And Anita says in the chat room, well, I find that people ask for help that won't accept it. Then they make agreements. Then they refuse to honor the terms that they themselves set. Stuff like that. Well, this is an R-rated show, so I'll say this. You gotta love them, but sometimes people are just assholes. How about that? That was real spiritual of me, wasn't it?
And that's totally okay, Christiana. This is a Grown Folks Network.
But I mean, and I say that with all love in my heart, and I'd love to hear your take on this. And there's also a question from Robin in the chat room that we'll get to in just a moment. But, I really believe that we have to love everyone on a spiritual level, but with really good boundaries. And that's why, I'll joke about people being assholes and douchebags and whatever. And that's not, I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean that like you gotta love them. I went to a born-again Christian high school, and I had a teacher who would say, I love him in Jesus, but that's all. And I think that's a way to be. What do you think, Barbara?
Yeah, I do. I think, and I know for me, boundary setting is always kind of a challenge. And I have a couple people in my life who, want to be helped, but, don't want to be fixed. And, sometimes you have to put some distance in there, for your own peace of mind, because it's not necessarily just about them. I mean, it trying to help someone and, feeling frustrated, could be a very difficult position to be in. And you have to take care of yourself at that point.
And isn't it true, that those of us who are psychics, those of us who are healers, those of us who are in this community, the community that you're in, Barbara, that I'm in, that Anita's in, if you're a healer of any kind, and we all are, you're going to attract to you people who need to be healed. And I think you said it brilliantly, Barbara, when you said, they want help, but they don't want to be fixed. People are not always ready, even though they say they are. Now, a question from Robin, and Robin Renee is a musician. She's also part of our community. She provided the music for our intro and outro here at the Psychic Cafe. So here's Robin's question. Do I currently know the people with whom I'll connect for career growth and advancement, or should I look in other directions? So Robin is looking to grow her career. She's wondering if the networking she's already done, the people she has around her, or are enough, or should she be reaching out in other directions? You go, Barbara.
Okay. Okay, I did 3 cards again. And, you know, what I'm getting from this, I do think, you know, and this is kind of more the feeling I'm getting than what I'm getting from the cards, that, you know, the people that are in your life now, and this is not to say to stop your networking or not continue, you know, to manifest or reach out, but I think it's saying that what you need is in your life at present. It is talking about visualized success was the first card I got. And this is in the position of foundation or past, you know, so I think it's saying that you know, that you are doing this, that you have done the manifestation work, but important part of manifestation work is always, you know, you visualize it and then you release it, you know, so, you know, that's the only thing I would say in regard to your manifestation, to let that go. The second card I got was the God Box card, which that's an old, you know, that's an old thing. I mean, you know, that they used to talk about in Sunday school, you know, to when you had an issue to put it in your God Box, you know. But I think with this, what it's saying is that the work you've done, you know, may well be sufficient, you know, and that it's just a period of incubation possibly that's necessary in terms. And then the other card I got for you was books. So, you know, I know Christiana said you're a musician, but, you know, this is indicating that, you know, writing, you know, editing is going to be part of the direction you're going to be going in the future. And I would say just to be in the lookout for that if you're not writing, to consider starting, and just, you know, be open to anything that might come your way in that regard.
That's a good hit. I happen to know that Robin is in fact a writer. She's a songwriter, but she does other writing as well. And at certain times in the past, I've encouraged her in that same way. So brilliant.
Good.
Brilliant.
Good.
Very good. Okay, so at this point, I want to look at all your online projects and really promote them. So we've got the New Age Review, and that's the newagereview.com.
Yes.
And that's your blog where people will find reviews of different metaphysical resources as well as some of your personal musings. Now you've got you've got some radio stuff too. Tell us what you're doing on the radio.
I do. I'm on Blog Talk Radio. I have a show on there, the New Age Review, also the New Age Review. We've recently moved our URL. It's now blogtalkradio.com/Spirit Radio. And I'm continuing with my show is I do usually about one interview a month of usually an author or a spiritual teacher. And I've had some great guests on and plan to be getting more. And I also do the angel card readings. I've started doing those every show just to stay in practice. And I do also media reviews on there, and I've got a couple co-hosts. And we also have 2 other shows now on the URL. We have psychic medium Anthony Quinata has a show on Thursday nights, and then astrologer Anna Suarez is going to be having a show. We're not sure of the day yet. So that's the radio show, and that's every Wednesday. The New Age Review is every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern, and it's an hour, and it's different, something different every week.
Terrific. Okay, we have another question in the chat room, and this is coming from Catherine, and we'll do the same thing. I'll let you go first, and then I'll come in. Okay, Catherine, her question is about romance. She says she's pretty clear about other aspects of her life, but needs some confirmation on romance. So
Okay.
I'll let you start, and then I'll come in at the end. We're going to talk. I love it when it gets juicy. We're going to talk about Catherine's love life. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I don't have my romance angel deck with me, so I'll have to wing it with this one.
She's winging it with the angel deck. Did everyone get that?
Okay. I'm not, and I wish I'm tempted to pull tarot here for this, but what I'm really getting here, I'm not getting any indication necessarily of someone coming into your life, which is not to say someone is not. It's just, this kind of isn't the deck really for that. What I am getting in terms of relationships, just in general, I mean, what they're showing me, again, I pulled 2 chakra cards for you. I pulled the sacral and the base chakra, so again, this is the angel therapy deck. It's a lot to do with spiritual healing, but, I think what they're saying is in terms of romance, whether you have, something going on right now or you're hoping for something in the future, I think they're saying to do to do the legwork for a relationship, to do the clearing work and to do the defining what you want and kind of getting yourself into the place where you're ready for the relationship, and then at that point the person will come, and that's what I'm getting on that.
That's beautiful. Catherine confirms that she has been doing a lot of spiritual work, and so she's in that process.
Good.
Now, the 2 chakra cards that you got, which ones were they again?
Base chakra and sacral.
So that's 1 and 2.
Yep.
So here's how I see this, and it's from a very heterosexual perspective, but here's how I see it. The base chakra, or the root chakra, is, many people see that as the seat of male sexuality. Now, it is also the seat of our sense of survival. So when a guy says he's going to die if he can't get laid, he means it. That's what that feels like. And that's where that very young masculine sex drive comes from, is that base chakra. Now, for women's sex drive is in that 2nd chakra, the sacral chakra. And that's where we nurture, that's the womb. And so for us, sex is more about nurturing and love and all of that stuff. And so right away, you can see that, and I'm not going to call it an imbalance, but that from a chakra perspective, and I just think it's funny that you pulled those 2 cards, because from a chakra perspective, we really are coming from 2 different perspectives. Not that one's right and one's wrong, but 2 different perspectives. Catherine says she feels she is close to someone that is in the living and she knows his spirit. So I'm going to ask you, okay, and then she says she doesn't want to be alone all of her life. So when we look at those 2 chakras and we think about what that says about male-female relationship, like many of us, Catherine, you may not have the easiest or best history when it comes to love. And this is, why what Barbara said is so very important, the need for healing on every level. When we talk about what you're feeling, that someone is around and that you can feel that, I would confirm that for you. Yes. But be patient and keep doing the work that you are doing. I feel like you have had on a very psychological level, you've had issues with self-worth, not always feeling worthy. You've had a lot of anxiety. And now you're learning to look to the future with hope in all aspects of your life, and that's working for you. And it will work for you in every aspect of your life, even this most difficult aspect. So keep doing what you're doing, just like Barbara said. Be open, be ready. It'll happen. Don't you worry. Just, and this is good advice for all of us. Don't accept anything that isn't worthy of you. You've already been there. You've already done that. And you know that doesn't work. So there you go. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our time together, and I have so many more questions I want to ask you. So we'll have to have you back. I have a couple more questions I'd like to ask today, and I want to get the blog out again, thenewagereview.com. Now, is information about the radio show available on the blog?
It is, and we also have a website for the radio show. It's spiritradioonline.com, which gives information online.com, and that gives information on the different shows. So,
okay, so everyone needs to check that out. And I just want to, in closing, I want to ask you one question that we could actually spend a whole hour talking about, but we're not going to. So as succinctly as you possibly can, from your perspective, no right or wrong here, what is an angel?
An angel is a being of light.
Well, that was easy. Are angels humans who have passed on and are now in service? Are they a separate race or a separate group of beings? What do you think?
In my opinion, they're not humans. In my opinion, they're spiritual beings and have always been spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful. And Catherine says, yeah, and don't forget that angels are here on earth. And, when we talk about that, and I think different people have different ways of looking at that, but the idea that sometimes we are in the position, if you will, we are in the position to be God's hands, or we are in the position to be of service. And certainly you are in that position every day. And I really appreciate the work that you do for the community. I thank you so much for spending this time with us. I hope you'll be back soon. And again, everyone, thenewagereview.com and spiritradioonline.com. And thanks so much for being here, Barbara Graver.
Thank you, Christiana. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Glad you were here. So we have one more thing that we're going to do today before we say goodnight, and that is a tarot deck review. The theme, of course, of today, reviews. And I have a video review of the reissued Ancestral Path Tarot. So let's roll that right now. Hi, this is Christiana Gaudet with another video review of a tarot deck. Bang the gongs, sound the trumpets, and sing hallelujah. U.S. Games has re-released one of my very favorite tarot decks of all time, the Ancestral Path Tarot. Here's my old Ancestral Path Tarot. This was published originally in 1995, and when it went out of print, I literally cried. So no one is happier than me to tell you that the new Ancestral Tarot, here's what the box looks like. So here's the old one. Here's the new one. You can see they're the same size. The box is different. On the back of the old one, we see the Seven of Cups. On the back of the new one, the King of Sacred Circles. Here on the old one, it says unique 78-card tarot deck uniting diverse multicultural beliefs and mythology. Here on the new one, Ancestral Path Tarot is a unique multicultural deck that highlights human experiences by examining the traditions and spiritual beliefs of 4 different ancient cultures. So the wording's a little different. The deck is, I would say, exactly the same. The only difference I noticed was in the coloring of the back, and I will show you what I mean. Here's the old one, and you'll see that the back is not reversible. Here's the new one, and you can see the color is slightly muted. That's the only difference I found. Okay, so if you have an Ancestral Path Tarot gathering dust on the shelf, it's time to dust it off and bring it back into your life. If you have an old one that has been damaged, it's time to get a new one. And if you don't own Ancestral Path Tarot, it's time to get it right now, a brand new deck. When I got my original one, I also got this book by Tracy Hoover. I am not sure that this book is now reissued. Maybe if we put some pressure on U.S. Games, they will. Maybe it isn't. I don't know about it. You can check with them. But I did find this book by Tracy Hoover to be very helpful. The Little White Book is only 30 pages. It does pack a lot of information into the deck. This is a very complex deck, though, which is why I like the book. So, let me tell you about the deck. First, we're going to talk about the major arcana. When I look at this deck, I see Waite influences, I see Crowley influences, I see influences from early esoteric tradition. I also see feminist influences, and certainly, as I've already told you, this is a multicultural deck, but it's not in your face politically correct. Now, the four suits are very specifically organized, and we'll talk about the minor arcana in a moment. The major arcana may seem a little disjointed because it doesn't seem to have a central theme. Let me show you first the Fool. This is a modern Fool, and it actually is an image of Tracy Hoover, who wrote the book. And what do we see? It's a tarot reader, and what is she doing? She is holding up the Fool card from this deck. So there's this sort of what happens when a mirror faces a mirror kind of thing going on. If you look at the carvings in the chair, you see some traditional Fool images in the chair and in the dolls hanging from the chair. So what an interesting Fool. And right away, when we think about Ancestral Path, this is a very rich deck, not only in its beautiful artwork, but in its messages for us. And one of the things, especially looking at this deck in its reissue, we think a lot about our path as tarot readers and the actual cultural path of tarot. And so to see this as the Fool has even more meaning to me now than it did when I got my first Ancestral Path Tarot deck so many years ago. The only name that has been changed is the Hanged Man, who is now the Hanged One. And look at what we have. A fetus in birth position waiting to be born for the Hanged One. Profound. A comment on the human journey and the human path. Stunning, isn't it? What else do we see in the major arcana? We do see cultural influences. You can see that the tower is Egyptian. So is the sun. The sun is Egyptian. The moon is Native American. Judgment is a very interesting card. And this is one that I think readers who don't have access to the original book will suffer a little. Because what we learn in the original book is the Judgment card comes from a dream that the artist, Julie Couchet Watts, had. And this is actually Julie, the artist, floating out of her bed and putting her arm into another level of existence, another level of reality. So here we have an image from the artist's dream. Now, when we look at the minor arcana, 4 suits associated with the 4 elements, but each suit is also associated with a particular cultural story, a particular cultural myth, if you will. Pentacles in this deck are called sacred circles, and they are associated with a Native American story. The 4 characters in the court, and the court is kings, queens, princes, and princesses. These are deities or characters in the story. When we look at the story told by each suit in the minor arcana, we're doing it top down, starting with the 10, telling the story all the way down to the 2, and then seeing the ace as the essence of that element and of that story. This is actually a traditional way to look at tarot, but here is the 10 of sacred circles, starting the Native American story. Now, the suit of cups is British, telling the Arthurian legend. So here we have King Arthur as the King of Cups, Guinevere as the Queen of Cups, Lancelot as the Prince, and Morgan as the Princess. We start with the 10 of Cups in Camelot. The suit of swords tells a story of feudal Japan. And so we see Japanese deities from Shinto as the court characters. And we begin our story with the 10 of swords. The final suit is the suit of staves, which tells the story of ancient Egypt during the time of Ramses II. And some of the images I really like here, the 8 of staves, we have the sacred ibis. And so we have very Egyptian images here. So one question might be, with these 4 distinctly different suits, how do the cards work together? And the answer is very well. What you have when you do a reading with it is a very multicultural deck. A deck where not everyone is white. And that's a good thing. The thing about Ancestral Path Tarot is you can study it as deeply as you want or not. It is a readable deck. It works on so many levels. It is what I like to call an archetypal assignment deck, where a tarot artist finds a theme and works with the tarot archetypes, assigning characters from the theme to those archetypes. Now, some of our best archetypal tarot artists are Chris Walder of Goddess Tarot, Lisa Hunt, Animals Divine Tarot, and many others. But the thing to remember is Ancestral Path Tarot came out in 1995 originally. Chris Walder's acclaimed Goddess Tarot didn't come out until 98. So really, Julie Kusha Watts is one of the first artists to really work with the archetypes in this way. So use Ancestral Path Tarot to study these archetypes. Use Ancestral Path Tarot to give great readings. Use Ancestral Path Tarot to help you think about the larger picture. We will be someone's ancestors one day. We are creating our own cultural fabric right here, right now, with the people around us. And if we look at this from the perspective of tarot, Ancestral Path even talks about its own culture, especially as we revisit it now in its brand new box, reissued, republished, we understand that Ancestral Path Tarot is a tarot ancestor with all the wisdom and all the knowledge of any other ancestor. I am so grateful to US Games for bringing this deck back to us. Was that not an awesome deck? I love that deck. I really did cry when they discontinued it, and I'm so glad they brought it back. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. Special thanks, of course, to Barbara Graver for being our wonderful guest. Next week, we're doing an exploration of divination. She may not realize it, but it was Robin Renee's idea. She left me a note on the Facebook Psychic Cafe page about some weird form of divination, and it got me thinking. So we'll be talking about all kinds of divination next week on the Psychic Cafe. I want to remind you that I do have a series of tarot webinars, free webinars and premium webinars, and I am available for private readings by phone and Skype. Just visit my webpage, tarotbychristiana.com, and I'll see you right back here next week on the Psychic